Good evening, everyone. This is Chomsy Decoded. I'm your host, Sophina Turner, and I welcome you all back. This is episode number 9, and we're going to be discussing the topic of today will be antebellum. Now, I don't know if any of y'all know what that is. I know I didn't before I recently read up on it. Um, Antebellum, it means it derived from the Latin word of before the war. And the era, because that's what this is, the era and time frame that this was after the War of 1812, which was from 1812 to 1815, and before the American Civil War, which was from 1861 to 1865. So that's the era that it came out of, and it means before the war. Um, this marked what marked the era was the development of separate northern and southern economics, Westwood expansion of the nation, and a spirit of reform. Now, you may want to know what is Westwood expansion. Westwood expansion is the 19th century movement of settlers um, into the American West that began with the Louisiana Purchase and which was fueled by the Gold Rush, the Oregon Trail, and a belief in manifest destiny. Now, manifest destiny is a phrase coined in 1845, um, and this is the idea that the United States is destined by God. Its advocates believed to expand its domain and spread democracy and capitalism across the entire North American continent. Now, they did a wonderful job when it comes down to spreading capitalism. They conquered and won a lot of countries when it comes down to capitalism. Now, democracy, yeah, we do have probably a decent democracy compared to probably other countries. But is it a fair based democracy? No, if you think about systemic racism in the midst of all that, I wouldn't say so. And during the time and the era of antebellum, of course, what was going on? Slavery. Slavery was going on back during this time. So, would you consider that to be a fair democracy during that time? Even when it comes down to the time that we're currently in. We are currently in 2022 and we still dealing with racism. We still dealing with forms of slavery when it comes down to mental challenges of how the systems control what's going on out here and keeping certain races in a lower bracket than others when it comes down to being successful. Now, mind you, you have your exceptions. There are always going to be exceptions to any rule. You know, you have some millionaires and billionaires out there that are in the black race. That is so very true. But when you think of the majority, um, they definitely are not in the majority when it comes down to being that successful, monetarily. So we are dealing with a lot of systemic racism, a lot of biases, a lot of one-sided successes, or let's just say that there are certain races that have such a huge lead in front of the black race that is, I don't know if we're ever going to catch up. It took 400 years for us to get here to where we at now, so I guess it's going to take another 400 years for us to get to even reach the plateau where, our white counterparts are at. Who knows? I don't know, but, that's something that we will definitely not going to be here to see. I know that for certain. So, um, who even know if the world's still gonna be standing during in another 400 years? Because the way the world's going down and how mankind is really tearing down, when you think of the climate change and when you think of, just so many different things. But the climate change is number one when it comes down to man and how they tearing up what's going on, with our country, with this world. The seas are, uh, it just a lot going on. You got, when you think about Antarctica and you got these glaciers that's melting, and you think about all these different hurricanes and stuff, things of that nature that's out of our control. But then you got these satellites that's up in up in space, and what what they see and what they control and what type of damage. Lord knows what type of damage that they're doing. Also, when it comes down to this, so at the end of the day, mankind is really killing themselves off eventually. Guess they destroying the earth. So I'm gonna say we, because I'm a part of mankind. We are destroying the earth. I believe that everyone needs to do their due diligence when it comes down to trying to maintain and keep, your area clean. At least, you're in front of your home, outside your home, and make sure your children is learning about maintaining and what it means to take care of things that's and be respectful of things, because that's important too, and maybe that will help them to learn more about the environment so they can keep up with that as well. So let's also build off on that too, as informing and educating, the youth, our children, to make the world better. Because right now there's a lot going on out here that's really just destroying planet Earth. So we need definitely some changes to come about when it comes down to this. So, excuse me, but yes, definitely need some changes to come about when it comes down to this. Um, I'm gonna tell you now. Back during Antebellum, you had the country divided, because Antebellum, when the American Civil War started, that's what ended Antebellum, and we had the northern part of the country and the southern part of the country at odds. So, um, what started the war was based or centered around, because I would say the northern uh, uh, white men, the northern white men wanted to have say in, when it comes down to the legislation, when it comes down to laws, um, being indoctrinated into the Constitution. So, and the reason, but they saw that the southern, I say, population was expanding because they made the black person, made them 3/5, of a person that back in the Constitution. So back then, and by them being 3/5 of a person, it expanded, you know, the population in the southern states where they will have more, or you would say, more of the white man would have more say in what goes on in the country as a whole. And so the southern part of the country wanted the expansion. The northern part of the country did not want the expansion. So they had to go into a duel. And that's why the Civil War was even that's why it even happened, because they went into that duel. So it wasn't to end slavery per se. It wasn't because people just felt that it was just a horrible thing to happen, for one for once a race to conquer another race by enslaving them, beating them, whipping them, raping them, all sorts of evil things that was done back then to the black race. No, that wasn't. The Civil War wasn't done to end all that. That's not the whole. That's not the base of why the Civil War was even started. It was because of capitalism. It was because of democracy, whereas the northern white man wanted to have just as much say as the southern white man. That's the real reason. From my understanding of history, that's when it comes down to the antebellum era. That's the real reason. So please, by all means, look into what is antebellum and where did it derive from. What is the surrounding factors of antebellum, and maybe you will have a different conclusion. If you come up with a different conclusion than what I came up with, as far as your understanding of what the era of antebellum was, then please by all means share in the comments with us so we can also see it from your viewpoint and explain in depth why you think it was what you think it is. Please, by all means. So, and I'm gonna go into the the country divided from the northern parts and the southern parts. Now, the northern parts, and this is what it says: the northern part of the country specialized in the great port cities that used immigrants as cheap labor for the variety of businesses. That is the northern parts of the country. The southern part of the country focused on the agriculture due to its fertile lands, and cotton was the primary crop. Slavery provided the labor to harvest large plantations for greater profits. So that was the difference between the two, the northern and the southern parts of the country. Okay? Now, I mean, it's a lot going into the history of the United States. So, as I said, slaves was counted as 3/5 of a citizen for purposes of federal representation and taxation, which means always about the money. That's what it means. Slavery continued to expand the northern. Politicians let me say it like this. If slavery continued to expand, the northern politicians would begin to lose influence in policy decisions. North against South for expansion. So the North was not for expansion. The South was for expansion. And like I said, it always comes back to the money, capitalism, democracy, meaning who runs this country? Who makes the laws? Who is in power? That's what democracy really means. Because, it's supposed to be freedom of speech, freedom of this, freedom of that. Yes, it's supposed to be being able to be educated and, a lot of other things that it's supposed to be able to do to help build the communities within the borders of this country. Yes, and yes, it does supposed to do all these things. But is it done fairly? Is it been disseminated out fairly and equally? That's the problem, because it has not been. You wonder why you have so much crime in these cities across these United States of America. You have crime in these cities, and it's getting worse. It's because they see no other way. They've been experiencing no other way but what's outside the front door. And the only way they the only way that a lot of the young people, who happens to be the majority of blacks that lives in the inner city, the reason why they do have the crimes that they have, because where are the programs that used to be out there to help? Where are the elders out here who's supposed to help build, the youth, and give them what maybe their elders gave them, to help them to be better people, to understand what life really is, to know that you care about them. And, when it comes down to, like I said, the programs, and that deals with social structure in the communities, then you have a lot of things that, where people they feel desperate. They are desperate to grab a hold of something. Now they don't even really care about themselves anymore, because they feel that no one else care about them. So they don't care about themselves, and they definitely don't care about nobody else. So they willing to even die for what they believe in. And they just out here trying to survive. It's all about survival. So that's just my interpretation of what I think is going on out here. And it's a lot more. It goes deeper and deeper. But that's just on the surface of certain of things. When you get into, like I said, when you get into the socialism of what's going on out here, they're being deprived. They've been abused for so long by the system. And then and it started, and it's just that generational curse, that war that goes on when it comes down to the generations of trying to break chains that is hard to break. It's just hard to break it, because they don't see no other way. They only see what's outside their front door. Again, I go back to how I raised my children. I tried to remove them. I tried to take them out of the neighborhood that we lived in when we lived in the city. I wanted them to see that they are more than what you see outside your door. They're more than guys hanging on a corner selling drugs. It's more to all these bars that's on every corner in the city. It's more to just, people barely getting by. There's a lot more out there. So, I mean, we all got to work together. We all one race. We are the human race. And we definitely need to all work together to try to conquer the demons that's plaguing our communities. That deprivation is real. It really is. Being deprived, of being able to have a chance to make it out here. Education, that's why education is important. Knowledge is important. But more to it, you have to have love. You have to have support. You have to have guidance. You know, you have to understand what accountability is. It's just a lot that involves when it comes down to the community as a whole to make better. But we all got to do better. We all have to do better. And I pray that we do. But I wanted to share another little part of history when it comes down to our country, when it comes down to the human race, what we went through. Antebellum. Oh man, I tell you. Well, I thank you for tuning in. Again, this is Charm City Decoded. I am your host, Sophia Turner. And I pray that you will come back again to join in the conversation. I hope that everyone have a great night. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and share if you can, so others will have an opportunity to view me, and that definitely will help my channel to grow. And I thank you in advance for any and all help that you give. All right, so everyone have a great night. This is Sophina Turner. I'm signing out. I'll see you next week.